making more money than the average third-tier country. And then the financial crisis had hit. After that, he'd made even more as he preyed on people's desperation and fear. He'd ripped off his clients and their pension funds and walked away from the carnage scot-free by simply telling the world he was suffering like the rest of us. Suffering so much that he'd joined the wolf pack down here in New Zealand. So, where was the harm in repatriating just a little of it to its rightful owners? It wasn't his investors' rage and despair that he'd run down here to avoid. That was just small fry compared to something he and many others who'd fled to New Zealand considered much worse. Anyway, that was his problem. Mine lay directly under the desk in the middle of his trading room, covered with an ornamental rug that lay, like an island of swirling colours, in a sea of grey Italian slate. The desk was dark wood, straight-legged, heavy, and substantial. There were casters on each of the legs that were going to make it ever so easy to move away from the rug. A pretty basic mistake that signals you're trying to hide something underneath. I pulled the desk aside, very conscious of keeping all the family pictures, the paperwork, the pens and pencils from moving or being displaced. Obviously, it would have been easier if I'd had a mobile with me to take a couple of pictures, the before to compare with the after. But bringing one in was dangerous. The dangers far outweighed the advantages. I needed to be careful. I was careful. I was always careful. With the rug now free of the desk, I rolled it up to expose a brushed steel cabinet set flush with the floor. It was rectangular and embedded in the concrete, just as I'd known it would be. 2. This wasn't my first visit to the Dalladine household. I had called in twice before a year ago, while the house was being constructed. I had found out all the details possible from the local authority, all the consents and specs. So I knew what was being built, but more importantly, how and with what. I knew where all the electrical and security systems were going to be installed, all the plumbing, everything down to the type of locks that would be used to keep out intruders. My other visits were to confirm that the specs were being adhered to correctly, and no one on site had batted an eyelid. Construction is a bit of an international brotherhood, and it's amazing how helpful people are when you say you're in the business. You're on holiday, you were just passing by, and you couldn't resist seeing how things were done this side of the world. It all paid off. Once the house was finished, I could come back and access it on a day of my choosing, and take whatever I wanted, just like today. It had made me very happy for months that I knew what was going to happen, and the owner didn't. I'd realised years ago that what I did to make money these days was very much like my old business. In what now felt like a lifetime ago, I had been a quantity surveyor. Say the word surveyor, and most people think you're the guy a building society sends round to check a house you're buying, and who doesn't even spend enough time to look in the roof space before approving or turning down the mortgage. Back then, I used to smile and say, "Yep, something like that." I never had the time or the inclination to explain that my job had nothing to do with mortgage applications. A quantity surveyor ensures that construction costs are kept within budget, so he or she has to supervise the entire end-to-end process of a construction development. To be able to do that, he or she needs to understand all the relevant building regulations for a project, and everything about construction down to the last nut and bolt, from drainage to electrical systems to insulation. I'd overseen the building of everything from a home extension to a multi-million-pound tower block. I knew my stuff. I had a practical, logical mind, a methodical way of thinking, and was pretty creative when it came to problem solving. I'd gone to university, studied for years to qualify in my old career, and I didn't see why this new one was any different. Any gaps I had, like dealing with the pressure of being caught, were filled by my training experience in the reserves as a captain in the Royal Engineers.